All right. So this should actually post to my page. So we'll give it just a couple seconds. Okay, you can go to my page now and share it out from Facebook.
Done deal.
Hello, hello, hello. As you come in, please say hello. We are back. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but you know how that goes typically. So yes, I am so excited about this discussion tonight. Like it has been just an anticipated discussion on I think all sides. And so yeah, like this is gonna be good. So how are you guys feeling?
Uh, Pretty, it's hard to describe emotions in real time, sometimes. And it's been a pretty tough week and a lot of emotions. And so, been doing okay, just utilizing a lot of tools I've developed over the years to try to
Yeah,
remain calm and in a place of awareness, while so much is going on. A lot of people are upset and just trying to be sensitive to that and also be sensitive to your own needs. And in the midst of all that can be challenging, but overall, doing good.
good, good, very good. Mr. Hayes, how are you feeling?
I feel pretty good. I've been, you know, holding it in the road, and I think the biggest thing for me has just been making sure that I'm present
Yeah,
for the moment and just not withdrawn. Been really looking forward to this piece of it because I think when I give information, it's almost like I'm preaching to myself sometimes.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
always helpful and
yeah.
navigating through the space as best we can.
Yeah, yeah, that's really all that we can do, right? And so, thank you for that. Thank you for just sharing with us where you are. I think that, a lot of people, especially other men, are feeling a lot of what you're feeling. And so, hopefully, this discussion will be very helpful. Um, and so, thank you for joining me on this conversation. We'll have Mr. McBride come in about 15 minutes. But first, I want you guys to introduce yourselves. And so, we'll start with you, Dr. Oden. If you can introduce yourself, tell us, what you do, and what do you like most about this field, this mental health space.
Sure. So, everyone who's viewing the video right now, my name's Dr. Thomas Oden. I'm an adult and forensic psychiatrist. Grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's why I was initially introduced to mental health work and seeing, how devastating mental health issues can be. Majored in psychology, so I have a BA in psychology from Morehouse College, and then from there went to med school in Boston University. Knew I wanted to go into psychiatry from the bat. Did additional training in New Orleans at Tulane for my psychiatry training and forensic fellowship training. And finished
Mm-hmm.
around 2015. After that, I had opportunity to travel, throughout the U.S. doing short-term contracts. I always had an interest in different types of like Eastern medicine practices,
Mm-hmm.
like the introductory kind of the potential of that in a way that it
Mm-hmm.
can overlap on Western medicine models and just to help further push along healing. And so got into Reiki, which is a Japanese form of healing that is representative in a lot of other cultures. You have many cultures around the world that have this healing practice of placing hands and using intention and prayer to
Mm-hmm.
facilitate additional healing.
Mm-hmm.
Practice in Africa, Latin America, Native Americans all over.
Mm-hmm.
But I was introduced to it in the Japanese form of that technique, and that was developed in the 1920s. And so I've studied that for a number of years. I have a private practice in Midtown Atlanta where I try to adopt an integrative medicine model of using supplements in addition to Reiki healing and as well as medication management as a psychiatrist to treat mental health issues. And I also work through Morehouse School of Medicine as a clinic professor, and I work 2 days a week at Grady in their outpatient community clinic. So pretty
Right.
busy these days.
That's a lot. You have a lot going on.
But yeah, it's enjoyable. And so I like mental health work because it gives you an opportunity to impact a lot of people at once. You're helping someone become a better father, mother, sibling, friend, The body can be very complex, and having a knowledge base of understanding underlying medical issues, how that can affect your emotional state is important. And so I feel like I get opportunity to impact communities at an individual level by helping someone to push forward their ideals and their dreams and their goals, and whatever they're going through, keep them from achieving that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Wow. You sound really busy these days. Like,
Yes,
I mean, what is life? What are we doing with our lives? Like, we're not busy enough.
yeah, it's pretty busy, but I enjoy what I do. Time goes pretty fast, and it's hard to do what you want to do without having some type of grind associated with it. So I'm still working on getting to where I want to be, but overall, I enjoy the practice, and I learn things as I go along too. I learn a lot from people. We're all connected, so and work with a number of patients who have things going on that I can relate to personally. And so it's always a reminder, and I really appreciate the opportunity to help people, and that also helped me at the same time. So it's to be in this position overall.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you. Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and many jobs to join us. And so we're thankful to have someone like you in the field who is passionate about what you do and passionate about helping your clients. And so good stuff, man. Thank you for being a part of the conversation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Scott, tell me what you do. I don't know.
So my name is Scott Dave. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work for the VA, and I work at the VA domiciliary, homeless domiciliary, and we have a 90-day program there where we work with veterans who are literally homeless, and we bring them in. It's set up like a university dormitory would be, and we work off the streets, try to get them stabilized on their mental health medication, clean from drugs and alcohol, and we the first 30 days really to get them into programming. We provide individual counseling, group counseling, and we have a multidisciplinary team of professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, dietitian, of course, social workers, nursing, who's there 24/7. And we are really working to get those folks into some level of stable housing within 90 days while they're there in the program with them. So, of course, I do groups there, and my particular groups there focused on men. So I have one group called Man Cave, which I'm very passionate about, and kind of talks to men about their humanity, being entitled to their humanity, being able to express their emotions, and kind of unlearning a lot of information that we were taught as young boys about what it means to be entitled to all of your emotions, that you're entitled to your anger and aggressiveness as a solution to that, and just kind of embracing the whole of our humanity. And other groups that do is called Surviving Outside of Structure, and just is around helping folks learn how to really thrive outside of a structured environment and outside of being in treatment. I don't have a whole bunch of other jobs, but not like Dr. Oden, but I bake on the side. And so that's my therapy for myself. And I'm a part-time militant Negro.
You know what? I cannot. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. And thank you for all that you do in this field and for our veterans. So yes, and I am B Speaks on Facebook. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I too work for the same federal entity as Mr. Hayes, and I'm a reentry specialist. So I basically travel to different prisons within the state, and I assist individuals who are getting ready to be released with getting linked to resources so that when they are released from prison, they are not transitioning to the street. I also have a part-time private practice, and I'm also the CEO of Pearls of Esther Incorporated, which is a women's empowerment organization that is dedicated to equipping women to be whole in every area of life. And That is all that I do, a child of God, and I'm a daughter. I have nephews, I have a father, I have a stepfather, and I have brothers. And so this conversation is very near and dear to my heart. And so I just wanted to create a platform for this conversation to happen. So without further delay, let's jump right into depression and anxiety. You guys are coming from a little bit of a different angle just because you have that clinical experience. And so, for some reason, I'm not able to see the comments here on the screen. So, if you see me look down, I'm actually going to read the comments from my phone. I'm going to actually turn my phone down so that you won't get the echo. But anyway, as comments come up, if I'm not able to see them on the screen, then I'll just ask you. So when we talk about stress and anxiety, I think sometimes we use those two kind of interchangeably. And so, what is your definition of stress and anxiety? What does that look like for men? How could that be manifesting right now? So there's no particular order. I mean, anybody just jump in if you want to share.
Sure. I can go. I think we touched on a good point in how people will interchange anxiety from stress. Oftentimes, we'll try to get patients to explain how they would describe anxiety. So, if they're teaching anxiety to someone, how would you describe that? Because that lets me understand, how they're using language and how they're expressing their emotions through language as well. From a definition standpoint, from like how we look at it in psychiatry, it's a persistent state of worrying that can be generalized in nature or be focused on one particular stressor. Over time, that can impact your ability to sleep well, to concentrate, your appetite, because ultimately we know that there are brain changes that occur when you are in that state of anxiety. It is somewhat of a prolonged stress response, which means there's likely some inflammation involved in the process. But the triggers for anxiety can be, from a lot of different reasons, from different environmental stressors and trigger events that happen and things that happen in the past that overall heighten someone's awareness, where they have an active fear response as a result. But sometimes anxiety can be based on things that aren't actually true, that persistent worry over time becomes a bit fixed in the brain. Our brain, there's this concept of neuroplasticity in which if you have a certain thought pattern going on for a certain period of time, it can be very difficult to change that. Our body is constantly trying to find a state of equilibrium and balance. And so anxiety is persistent worry, persistent stress. It can cause a lot of different problems. It can really impact your ability to focus and get on with your life. Have loops of thinking that's intrusive, thinking about the same thing over and over again until you tire yourself out. So there's a lot of energy expenditure involved in having anxiety, but everyone will describe it differently. People will express it differently. Many people, you may not tell that they're experiencing anxiety when you first meet them. They just may internalize that often, and they may come off a bit more moody. And I think as men, you may see that more prominently. We may not share how we're feeling or describing our symptoms as anxiety, but we might become more withdrawn. We may, have irregular sleep patterns. You may have more irritability, things that you may be faster at doing, may take longer periods of time to do, maybe work activities, something that requires concentration. And so it can also present as body aches and muscle aches and stomach pain and nausea and vomiting. And so there's an entire sequelae of symptoms that can occur with anxiety. But it's important to really engage in talking to someone about it so that you can flesh out those symptoms, because you may not actually know that you're experiencing anxiety at the time that you're actually having the symptoms.
Right. So I like what you said about, and Scott, I want you to actually piggyback on this as well. Hey, Broderick, how are you?
Hey now, how we doing?
Good. Thank you for joining. Everybody, this is Broderick. Broderick, this is everybody.
Greetings, brother.
Hey brothers, how y'all doing?
Good.
Broderick is now in the dancery. So anyway, so I like what you right. Thank you for joining. I like what you said, Dr. O, about how in men it can sometimes look like being withdrawn, which, you know, for us sometimes as women, because we are, you know, sometimes we can be more expressive. So when something's bothering us, we want to talk about it. But that's good to know that sometimes if you're feeling anxious, and we'll actually get to ways that women can support in these instances, but that's good to know that sometimes being withdrawn can definitely be, and you know, a host of other things can definitely be symptoms of stress or anxiety. Scott, can you piggyback on that? What does that do you have anything to add in terms of what that can look like in men, especially right now with, I mean, a whole pandemic, fam? Like, we have a whole pandemic, we have a whole civil war going on outside. Like, talk to me. How
So
can you?
I think that you all learn, like, even through this session, that I'm relatively simple. Um, and I just believe in very simple definitions and making
Mm,
applicable for me. And so, you know, when I look at anxiety, I really think about like a feeling of almost intense uneasiness that you
mm,
that you can't shake. And
yeah.
then me, the stress is almost like my body's response to what,
Mm,
whether it's like my palms sweating when we first went live, or whatever that may be for you.
yeah.
I think in particular with men, um, people sometimes may say that we shut down or are withdrawn and they don't know what's going on with us. But even even that is something. A lot of times people say that we're not saying anything, but we're speaking very loudly when that happens. So,
Mm,
and when we are not communicative uh, in the way that we have been in the past. So even when we're saying nothing, we're absolutely saying something, right?
yeah.
And then you got to have a conversation about what it looks like to be able to feel comfortable enough to share what those feelings are with
Wow.
someone, and being able to key into that and have that conversation.
Right. 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 So that's also a key point in being able to know how to express that. So I want to come along behind that. Broderick, talk to us about, and I know we kind of touched on this a little bit in the very first session, but um, do you think there are just a lot of individuals, and since we're talking about men's mental health, do you think that, especially among African American men, that it is still very difficult for men to express what they're feeling, even in everything that we've got going on right now?
Absolutely. I don't necessarily believe in generalization. So I think that each man is a bit different.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
think just overall, though, there is a such thing as it being difficult for men just to communicate exactly what we
Mhm.
are.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it requires a level of vulnerability that a number of us, one, are not comfortable with
Mhm.
because of levels of toxic masculinity. But
Mhm.
also, two, do we authentically trust said safe spaces?
Wow.
Sometimes, you could be willing to undress yourself, if you will, like
Mhm.
figuratively undress yourself and
Wow.
disclose your woundedness. And your
Mhm.
woundedness is prodded with, wait a minute, you being too sensitive. Wait a minute, there's nothing to cry about. Wait a minute, you shouldn't even feel a way about that. So once certain boundaries or rules have been broken, it's now
Mhm.
deemed that space isn't trusted anymore.
Wow.
So instead of me divulging to a once safe space where I am, what I feel, and even what I think, I'll just keep it
Mhm.
bottled up inside because I know that at least with me, it's safe. Even if it is damaging, even if it does lead to a slow death, it's a death that I'm familiar with. It's a death that
Mm.
I have control over, if you will.
Wow.
So I think that for some of us, yes, it is definitely difficult. But when we know for real that we are in a safe space and we're able to divulge and we're able to share, and not necessarily sharing from the sake of wanting somebody to fix it, but just being an ear. Once
Yeah.
we know that, fam, listen, you got a whole water faucet. There's more than willing to divulge. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. Wow. Anybody want to piggyback on that or add to it?
I want to add to that in that I think it's important that we note that the way that men often show up in the world for a lot of us, it's almost like we face the world with we. I leave out of this house every day with my armor on, right? When
Hmm.
I put my
Hmm.
clothes,
Mhm.
on, I put my armor on because I'm not expecting that this world is going to care about me,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when I come home, this
Mhm.
my safe space. This is where I can take off my armor and I can feel comfortable in this space.
Mhm.
Now, the same thing really goes with creating, the safe space of my home and having an emotional safe space. When I can undress, when I can be emotionally naked, which I would contend is much harder than being physically naked
Very true.
with someone that you want to be intimate with. There is an emotional intimacy, and being emotionally naked with a person requires much more vulnerability, and we have to know that that's a safe space. And a
Right.
part of that is our responsibility, and a part
Mhm.
of it is the responsibility of the person who wants to be in that safe space with you.
Right. Right. Good stuff.
And I
Very
want
good
to add a little
stuff.
bit to that actually. I saw so many people post on social media that like Black people were tired. We're so tired, and I think just to piggyback off what you said, the layers that we have to have when we walk out of our homes to feel protected and to feel safe. And
Yeah.
it's exhausting to do that. And so when you get home and you finally can be naked in your emotions, oftentimes many people can be depleted and they may not be able to actually, give that energy to their partner when they're home or
Mm.
their family
Yeah.
because of all the layers they had to take on before they left the house and all the layers they're taken off when they get home. And so, we speak about it very, as is something that we all have to work with, but there's so many complications of that, and it makes for these type of conversations in which we're trying to, have an understanding of how men react to emotions and how women could potentially be more supportive of us, or we can be supportive
Yeah.
of each other as men, and then that exhaustion, can really be a barrier there.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I like that analogy also of just being exhausted with just like you said all the layers that you have to put on to go out and face the world and then everything that you have to take off to come home emotionally and mentally. So thank you for your feedback on that. Before I move forward, we have Tuskegee stand up. I mean, Scott got a whole amen corner over here. um so, hey, John. Oh, John Bernard. Thank you for tuning in. So, yes, Wifey is on here. We have a whole, yes, you can actually share the video now. I apologize, guys. I did not know that it was like friends only or something, but you can share it now. So, all the comments are coming up. Um, so, we have a question. April says, what happens when you can never have a safe space to take your armor off? Armed to go outside but can't do it at home either. So what do you do when you feel like you can't have a safe space?
For me, I am immediately developing an exit strategy. If I if I'm in a community where I authentically feel as if that I can't or I'm not safe to take my armor off, especially if I deem that space to be an intimate space, to be an intimate environment.
Mm-hmm.
Whether if it's my family, family by choice, or family that I share blood with, or
Mm-hmm.
young lady that I'm dating, like if there's a moment where I feel as if it is consistent, even after having direct conversation and saying, hey, this is something that I need. I think that there are one or two things that can happen. Either
Yeah.
we can make the adjustment within ourselves because we realize, hey, this community that I'm part of doesn't have the capacity or the bandwidth to give me what I
Wow.
need right now, even if I can't necessarily specify exactly what I need. I know what it's not, when something is given, if that makes sense. Like I might
Yeah.
not know what I need, but when you
Yeah.
give me something, that ain't it, right? So if I discover, hey, my community doesn't necessarily have the bandwidth to give me what I need, then the issue isn't necessarily with you, it's with me. So let me figure out another space to
Yeah.
go. Um, and if after having very direct conversation and it's still not given, for me personally, I'm developing some type of exit strategy, because if I
Wow.
can't necessarily feel safe in an environment
Mhm.
to just be me emotionally, and I deem this something that is very close and dear and sincere to my makeup and the essence of who I am as a man,
Mhm.
then yeah, I got to get out the dancery. I
You,
appreciate
you out the
you, but
dancery.
I got to get out the dancery. So
Yeah. Wow.
So I think what Roger said is a very healthy way of dealing with it. But I've been on the flip side of that, and
Mm.
you know, as a therapist who's in therapy, I can tell you that in those times in the past when I've not felt like there was a safe space, I medicated, um, and I medicated with what my bullshit was. And so, you know, and it depends on what each individual man's vice is or what your BS is. It can be gambling, it can be pornography, it can be jumping into some woman's DMs that gives you some attention. But if I have to carry the weight of this armor and there is no safe space, then I'm going to medicate, because at some point it's going to get too heavy for
too
me
heavy. Yeah,
and not
yeah.
have this armor on for 24 hours a day. And if I ain't got no beast powder, if I ain't got something to make that pain go away or relieve that, I'm gonna medicate with something. And often it's whatever my thing is. For some people, it's alcohol. For some folks, it's weed, it's cocaine. There's a multitude of women, or it's really just whatever your thing is. If we can't find healthy spaces in which we're able to undress and feel comfortable, then we'll just medicate.
Wow. Wow. Good stuff. Dr. O, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, just not having a safe space is very challenging. It's almost like you have to find one because, like as Scott said, you will self-destruct. That energy has to go somewhere. And if you're not able to really have a space of expressing emotions, then it'll just more likely go inward. But as long as you have to first identify that a safe space is needed in order to even strategize to find it. And so
Mhm.
that may not always be readily available at first glance, but I strongly believe in when we put something to the forefront of our goals and aspirations, like I need to find a safe space. And as long as we're in that, and that's in the forefront, it's not something we're pushing off, it's something that we're giving a lot of attention to. I feel like it increases the likelihood of that being found, even if you have to go inwards and it just comes into reading or educating yourself. But the reality is not everyone has the same resources to have these healthy ways of finding opportunities to relieve stress, and those are barriers. And oftentimes when we work with a mental health professionals, we are very much in acknowledgement of those barriers. We know that can complicate treatment. And so, getting someone to help you can help you, to establish what you may need that you may not actually see as opportunity yourself. And so I would say, keep reaching out to people that keep working on that, keep working on self-expression, and eventually some types of opportunities to find a space in which you can engage in someone honestly should be able to happen. But it may not happen exactly when you want it to happen. And it's just
Right.
have faith with that. It's important to keep that intention as well.
Right. 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 Good stuff. Thank you for that question. That was good.
I think too,
Yeah.
just to add to that real quick, and I'll keep it brief. I think that we have an inward responsibility or a responsibility ourselves, right, to set the framework up for what safe space looks like. And
Mm.
what we sometimes don't do and are unable to take responsibility for is that the onus is on us, right? And not even men, right, but on each individual person to set the framework for what safe space looks like for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What that may mean, you have to set that framework, and then whoever you plan to be in relationship with, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. This goes for our friendships, the people that we surround ourselves with,
Right.
the work relationships that we establish,
Mhm.
because all of those areas, they require having safe space, and it's up to us to build that framework out and tell other people what that looks like for us, so that we can then, you know, have an expectation for people to jump in and say, hey, I'm willing to work on this with you, or I'd like the opportunity to help you with building this in as it
Right.
relates to our relationship together.
Right.
Right. Right.
We're
Absolutely.
social. We're social beings. We're not designed to handle any of these life struggles and conflicts by ourselves.
Right.
We're really stronger with the people around us, and so it's like you said, it's very important to find those people that we can confide in. They may not be someone close to you. They may not be a friend. They may not be someone that you hired, but either way, someone who's invested and can put their full attention into you, so they can help facilitate the things that you're working on. You know, it's
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is good. Hey, I'm just taking it in. Like I'm not a professional tonight. Like I'm just, I'm just a woman off the street, just coming in, just just being fed all this information. And so Broderick had to hop off again for a minute. He's a superstar tonight. He's filming two different things right now, so he'll probably hop in and on and off. But let's keep it moving for the sake of time. So when we talk about depression, we talked about stress and anxiety and what that can look like. And again, we know that depression looks very differently for different people. And so let's talk specifically about men. Like, yeah, let's talk about it from a clinical standpoint. What does this look like? How can this manifest for the person who may be listening, who is saying like, I think I may be depressed, but I don't really know. Like, can I shake this off? Maybe I can't. So what can this look like? What have you seen in your clinical experience or personal experience or whatever you feel like sharing? When it comes to depression.
Yeah, once again, people describe depression differently. And I oftentimes will try to take in a patient's, how they view their depression. But overall, I think it can be very difficult to tell that like while you're actively depressed, that you're actually clinically depressed. And so oftentimes I just try to just give different examples, or well, when's the last time you really had a prolonged sense of enjoyment where you were happy and you were doing things that you want to do? And I'll see with how they respond. Someone may say, "Oh, it's been a year. It's been years since I've really engaged in things I enjoy doing." We have this like diagnostic statistical model of being able to diagnose things, and so in psychiatry, we're very much heavily symptom oriented as far as how we look at, what people's criteria for depression. And so, we go over how you're sleeping, what do you enjoy to do? Have you been doing those things lately, or have you been decreasing things you normally enjoy? How's your energy level during the day? How's your concentration? How's your appetite? And so, we're looking at all these like physiological parameters of how someone is maybe dealing with some type of prolonged stress state. But it's a stress response. It's a prolonged stress response, for weeks at a time. You're having more bad days than good days. It's almost like seeing the world with sunglasses on. So everything has a negative viewpoint on it. And so you're seeing everything very much in a darker way, in a place of hopelessness and helplessness. And so but how someone communicates that and how that looks in real time can really vary from person to person. Someone, when they're depressed, they may not want to get out of the bed. They're in bed all day, they get low energy, they can't be bothered with stuff. And in some people, they may distract themselves. They may go to abuse substances or engage in behaviors that are self-destructive because they can't really sit too long with that negative emotion. They have to distract themselves by things. And so that's why, it's important to, once again, just talk to someone, because the more a provider or healthcare professional or mental health professional can get to know you better, the more they can understand how depression is affecting you, because that can impact treatment planning so much when you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get this person better in a prolonged way? but you need to understand this person's background. You need to see how they view themselves, how they view their particular illness, if they even consider it an illness. They may say, well, everyone around me is depressed. Everyone's having a hard time right now, which is probably what we're all facing on a national level and in our individual lives, that, hey, well, I feel down, I feel sad, I feel overwhelmed with what's happened over the past, but everyone else next to me is also feeling that way. But how can we separate ourselves from the collective and also acknowledge how we feel individually? How a healthcare professional can really help you with that, because they can help pinpoint, how long have you felt this way? How long has the insomnia been? Have you had any recent weight loss? When's the last time you saw your primary care doctor? There may be some labs that you need to get done, because vitamin D seems to also affect your mood as well. And if you have certain dietary habits that can be, conducive to having poor nutrition, that can also look like depression. And so I think that, if you can talk to a bunch of people who have depression, and they all would describe it differently. They all will describe how it's impacted their lives differently. And so it's just important to engage in those conversations with someone who has the years of training and experience to help to tease out what's what. So overall, that was a long explanation. It is a complex question, because there's so many cultural frameworks and how someone describes their emotional state. Overall, there's ways of looking at it just from a biological perspective, from a neurological perspective, from a nature versus nurture or environmental standpoint. So all those things intersect at once when it comes to various mental health disorders, which is why I find it particularly, very interesting. But it can make for, very layered and long conversations, in which you really have to take some time to get to know someone in order to fully establish how, what are their triggers, what are their defenses, strengths, and how they're going to naturally kind of react to adversity.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, and then Scott, I'm going to come to you. So I get this question a lot, right? So people, well, I'm not going to say people, that's a generalization. Sometimes individuals are not sure of the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. So they may think, oh, can I go to a psychologist and they prescribe me medication? And it's like, well, no. But so can you just very briefly give the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? Because if you're not kind of in this world, it can be a little confusing and the lines can be a little blurred. So can you take just like a brief 30 seconds and give us a...
Yeah, it's like the number one question I actually get from patients. Not, it's just overall, you have media, and oftentimes in TV shows, they will interchange a psychiatrist and a therapist, and there is a lot of confusion there. But overall, a psychiatrist has a medical degree, and so they spent 4 years learning human physiology and pathology and genetics and the whole list of different medical training, and then you go into a specialized practice of psychiatry. It's more of an interface between the brain and the body, understanding how medical conditions can worsen emotional states, and also have a way to have a thorough workup when someone is exhibiting certain emotional states for a prolonged period of time. There's testing involved, there's medication, but medication is probably the biggest distinguishing factor, where a psychiatrist can prescribe medication, and we have a number of different types of medication used to treat various mental health disorders that all have they all have potential side effects that can impact or worsen pre-existing conditions. And so we are an arm of a medical service that to help to establish a overall healthy baseline for someone what's going on, to also have interdisciplinary collaborative efforts between other medical doctors too. And so the main distinguishing factor is definitely the medication management. And I'm a big advocate for therapy. Usually when I talk to patients, even though I'm not offering therapy, I still will try to figure out what type of therapy they would best fit under for treatment. I've had a lot of personal benefits from engaging in therapy myself, and so I feel like it's something that can really be helpful. Everyone has different blind spots. But when you're seeing a psychiatrist, we are primarily focused on the symptoms of stress, and we are using medication to counter that in different ways.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. So Dr. Regina is on here, and she is a psychologist. She says most psychologists like myself do not have prescription privileges. So yeah, that's kind of what you said. So I'm kind of moderating all of the. Thank you all for these comments and questions. I'm trying to read them and moderate as best I can. So Scott, talk to us a little bit about depression. What does that look like when we talk about men, when we talk about even more so, we want to talk about African American men. Is it how do you see that manifesting?
Well, I think I want to make sure that we highlight in this moment just what Dr. Owen said, that it's a difference in clinical depression and feeling depressed, right? And so it's important that folks are feeling like they may be clinically depressed, that they check in with someone, that they see a psychiatrist, see a therapist, have those conversations about, if you're having anhedonia, or which just means that I don't enjoy the things that I used to enjoy. Sleeping all the time. I don't have the energy to get out of bed. I have no desire to be out of bed. I'm not bathing, those types of things. And it can show differently in different folks. If I'm isolating, whereas I'm usually, up and out and about, and I enjoy doing a whole bunch of different things. And I think I'm seeing it's more complex for us now, in that even in the dorm where I work, my folks they're isolating because most of their groups that they do with us now are telehealth or via Zoom or video connect or something. So they're in their rooms like throughout the day. And so I worry most about my folks who have depression diagnoses, checking in on those folks and making sure that they're okay. So we're trying to keep them safe, but also we want to make sure that they're not, we're not, contributing to the perfect storm of them isolating and being by themselves, not coming out of their room and not talking. And frequently it's so difficult for men to say what is actually happening to them, because we pride ourselves a lot of times on, I ain't bothering nobody, right? And if what I used to do when I get upset was I would bother folks, or I fight, or I go to jail and that kind of thing. As long as I ain't bothering nobody, then I'm okay. And it's to be said for being able to recognize even when you're not necessarily bothering anybody, that you can still be very much depressed or having a depressive episode.
Wow. So you're saying that even though you're not bothering anybody, that it can still be just as destructive. Maybe now the destruction is turned inward, whereas before you would destroy relationships or I don't know, property or whatever else. Now you're turning that destruction inward. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I would, it could be even that much more dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Because in those moments, you really don't have anybody to intervene in those.
Okay.
You have, shown up and told anybody what may be going on with you in that moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that can be different for us as well, because of this whole I got my cape on, right? I got my outer shirt on.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is my cape protects me from, right? And there's something about men that I've seen for a lot of us that says, I don't mind losing, but I'm going to lose on my terms. Right? Some of the major difficulty that I have with my folks who experience different levels of depression, and even struggling with trying to maintain in a treatment plan, is that if they take a medication or they give it a trial and it's not working, or they have some symptomatology or some side effect that shows up that's not favorable, they may stop taking that medication, not tell anybody about it, and just decide, well, I tried this, it didn't work, so I might as well lose on my own terms, right? And a lot of times we will do that, and I see my folks do that a lot, whether medications is involved or not. It shows up just in men who may just be experiencing what we're experiencing right now, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying my best to show up as my best self in this moment. I jumped out of my house and now I got a flat tire. So you know what? The hell with it, right? And so we'll be open to giving things a try, but then it'll be the very first thing that goes wrong to say, okay, I showed up as my best self. This thing went wrong. I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You have anything to add to that, Dr. O?
Quickly, the comment about wearing a cape. What I've noticed is throughout my life and how men engage other men when we collect in groups. We want to showcase our strength. We want to talk about everything about everything else except for our feelings. So we want to talk about sports or our dating life or cars or our jobs, but oftentimes we're not really answering that question. How are you doing? How have you been? Because there is something about being a man in which, I think we're just naturally part of our evolutionary process in our DNA to really showcase strength when we can. And so when you're around other men, you don't necessarily want to put yourself in this, I'm feeling vulnerable. I cried last night. Those aren't really typical conversations you may not hear when you collect in a group as a man. And so I think that, that model is clearly not working well for us.
Yeah.
And, we're going to have to really engage how we really have conversations with ourselves. And I think just having this pandemic going on and everyone's being forced to really sit down and be more present. And I've had more deeper layered conversation with male friends than I've had in a long time, in which we're being more honest with each other about how we're feeling. Come off, and it's hard to really sustain a certain level of this new America that we're in right now and all these changes. And so I've seen people defenses go down in a way where you're like, well, why was it up in the first place? But you can tell it's up because of the stigma of mental health. And I think there's just some qualities of being a man that can result in you not fully utilizing the network you have with your friends, because it's more important to showcase how strong you are and that things are going well. And I think that's natural, but as we enter complex times, we're going to have to evolve in our ability to utilize the resources around us.
Yeah, I like that. Just like you said, being able to have that safe space amongst your brothers. You know what I mean? Taking off your cape and being able to have very honest and vulnerable conversations. So for someone who is listening, and I know we kind of touched on earlier, especially with the climate that we're in. I know that I keep going back to that. But we have some questions. I'm sorry, not questions, comments. Just highlighting everything that you guys have said. So I'm trying to go through as fast as I can. Thank you all for these comments. Thank you for the questions. Shout out to Scott. Scott, you have a whole fan club. What's going on? Did you pay these people? I'm just playing. I'm giving him a hard time. So guys, these are amazing questions and amazing responses. So let's talk a little bit about what it looks like for men to establish a sense of safety with your brothers, right? With your guy group. Because earlier we talked about what it looks like when you're relating to, another woman and we're going through what we're going through. But how do you actually take that step to be able? Yes, I see the question about getting young boys to express what they're feeling. So let's go there first. So I'm switching it up a little bit. How do you get young boys to express what they're feeling? What would be your recommendation for that? And I shared earlier that I was talking to my barber today, and one of the things that he said was that, hey, I don't know how to really, how do I explain to my 11-year-old about what's going on? Like, how do you explain? Like, first it was COVID-19, and explain it like, you're not going back to school. And it's not just that you're not going back to school. Now I have to explain to you and, why this stuff is happening on the news and what it means to be Black in America, what it means to be a Black male. Like there's just so many different layers that I can imagine parents are having to explain. And so how do you, number one, get young boys to talk about how they're feeling? And then how do you also engage them and help them to understand how they're feeling? So I know that was complex. So if you
I'm gonna try to jump into a portion of it, and the first thing that I want to make sure that I say is that um, it's important for us to understand that some of these things are we'll have to learn to communicate just by being honest, just by being able to tell our young men, our nephews, our sons, I really don't know, right? But we're gonna, make an effort to find some resources that may help us both navigate through this. And I, some of us are experiencing in this moment what I am experiencing in this moment is I have this profound anger
Wow.
that I experienced recently, and it's because I felt like I had to have this conversation with my nephew,
Wow.
and I am upset that my nephew has been robbed of his innocence in this way. Um,
Wow.
that he's not able to talk to Uncle Scott about going to just the park, about a trip that we have planned for him to come to Atlanta and spend the weekend with me, but having to have a deeper conversation over COVID-19 and about the rebellion that's going on right now,
Yeah.
and having to, because kids have a tendency to be like, oh, okay, well, why?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then in the midst of that, what I have to do is stop and recognize that I'm experiencing something, right? I'm experiencing, man, he's being robbed of his joy.
Yeah.
He's being robbed of his innocence in this moment, and how that makes me feel as a Black man experiencing this as well. So I think it's okay to set the tone by saying, hey, I don't know, but also this is upsetting for me, and it's okay that it's upsetting for you. And I think one thing that we pointed out a little bit earlier was this idea of unlearning, right? Unlearning this kind of tough guy mentality, and the belief that we are not entitled to have those initial feelings. There are our automatic thoughts, and
Yeah.
I have my clinical training. I'm in
Yeah.
touch with that. I can do that well, but I still have my automatic thoughts. So when I be
Right.
like, I'm sick of these folks taking joy from Black men, from Black women, from Black girls, and how I feel about that in that moment, because I
Yeah.
need to do that right in order to show up. And
Yeah.
more than not only showing up, because a lot of times we give ourselves credit as men for showing up, but there's another level to that. You have to show up as your best self in that moment.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
believe every day that all of us we're showing up as our best self, you
Yeah.
know, um, with the tools that we have at the moment. Like
Right.
I'm here, and there's a whole other level to being here and being vulnerable enough to
Yeah.
say, hey, this all I got.
Right.
This is who I am in this moment, and I don't have the answer, but we can learn it together. And
Right.
that for the friendships that I have as well. When me and my partner get together, we are trying to have some of those conversations just about showing up as your best self, and being able to have those conversations about, hey man, I don't know what's going on right now, but I feel like I'm about to flip every table in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's good.
Yeah.
Dr. O, do you want to add something to that? I see your questions. I promise I'm going to get to them. So Dr. O, do you want to add something to that?
I feel like, trying to understand someone else's emotions can be quite difficult. I mean, we have a whole field of study dedicated to it, countless books and resources. And so first, don't give yourself too much grief about it. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's actually quite difficult to understand how someone's feeling, especially how they may not actually have the emotional language to describe how they're feeling. And so that's when you have to sometimes get creative or utilize different resources online to figure out ways to do that, or different books. You may have to, for example, some kids, if they may be able to describe how they feel based on, hey, can you find a song that you can find that that can tell me how you're feeling right now? That may be helpful for a child. Or can you draw something to represent how you feel right now? Or can you make a short story, or just they have to meet them where they're at in order to understand how they're feeling. And that can be useful. Some people may express their emotions through colors. They may be able to describe it that way. And so it's actually difficult. It does require help. You can't. It's hard to really do it by yourself. And so I think that's a important part to point out, that those types of questions, those types of struggles are not something that everyone can really handle on their own. Sometimes you're forced to, but ultimately, if you can use resources around you to help navigate that conversation, that can be very useful. But I just felt it was important to let people know to not be too hard on themselves. I'm still learning more ways to gauge someone's emotional state. So take the time for that.
Right. Good stuff. That's good. Being creative with how they may want to express their emotions based on
Now they love them now. So.
Yeah. Good stuff. There's a question specifically. Okay, so there was another question, and then there's a question specifically for you, Dr. O. But this first question says, how do men exist with what's currently happening in our nation? I think we kind of touched on this. As a colleague, spouse, father, brother, all while we have a cascading health crisis. How do they stay lifted, make a difference, be inspiring, and carry the mental load? That sounds exhausting just reading. How do you do all of those things?
Well, first you have to check in with yourself. Black people, we're very sensitive people. We're very connected people, and we're affected by emotions around us, whether or not we want to, whether or not we know that and acknowledge that we're empaths. We are very empathic people. And so it's very important to wake up, establish how you're feeling, establish, how am I feeling physically? How am I feeling emotionally? How's my center doing right now? And if it's not great, at least it's not great when you're starting your day. And so you can be in a plan mode. So I find it very important to put into the conscious forefront that of things you need to work on. And even if you're distracted doing other things, as long as you're highlighting when you start your day, how you're doing, you're more likely to be in awareness of that. And so I think it's very challenging to be centered in your core right now, understanding there's civil unrest, there's a pandemic going on that's affected people that we know, and our lives have changed in some way. And so, it can be very challenging to burden the weight of all that on your shoulders.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to check in on how you're feeling, because guess what? You're also influenced by the fact that there's so much going on around you that's affecting you as well. And so I think you have to initially tease out where you're at, and also tease out how much of this feeling that I have, this uncomfortable feeling, is me compared to how much of this is the people around me. I Facebook people that are upset, that are angry, that are reliving certain trauma from these this week of experiences, and to be in awareness of the distinguishing factors between yourself and certain around you, I feel like puts you in a better place to position yourself to be in more awareness, which ultimately allows your opportunity. Because I feel like a lot of the behavior patterns that lead to negative outcomes and negative self-perceptions, they don't happen overnight. It's something that grows over time. It's very in that way, and so things will snowball. And so being in more awareness of how you feel, I just feel like puts you in a better preparation mode to understand how you need to navigate your rest of your day as a result, while also being very mindful that, hey, I'm going to feel out of sources because most of America feels that way right now.
Yes.
and that's all impacting me all at once, and I'm going to have to strategize, and that strategy may not happen overnight, but as long as it's in the forefront of a goal, the likelihood of being achieved is much higher compared to I'm just going to go about my day-to-day activities and interactions without acknowledging how this is impacting me.
Yeah.
Or not being in awareness that, whatever existing emotions I have right now is going to be heightened as a result of everyone else around me engaging in the process too.
Yeah. Yeah. So first being aware of where we are just on our own, and then we can handle everything else, but we first have to check in with ourselves.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you have to ask yourself the question, how am I doing? How do I feel based on the world, and the way it's interacting with me? I feel like that's just a good starting point. But it's always it's a lifelong project to always find better means of relieving stress and to alleviate emotional discomfort. But first we have to just acknowledge it and be able to accurately assess where we're at with that.
Right. Good stuff, Scott.
I think to kind of play on that, for me, it's about knowing what my thermostat is, where I am on my thermostat. I know, about how heated I can get, about how much stuff I can take on before it's too much. And lately, in particular, what I've been making sure that I do is that I save space for myself, and I also give grace to myself. And so I'm trying to do that for other people as well, because that's what I do for a living, right? And I think sometimes as clinicians, it's difficult for us to do that same thing for ourselves, because we jump ready to save the world a lot of times. And double down on that for how sometimes we can feel as men. Sometimes we feel like we have to be there for everybody else, right? Everybody is dependent on me, right? And in those moments, we feel like it's up to us to expend everything that we have in order to save, in order to be there for folks. And there's indescribable feeling of impotency when you cannot be there for everybody who's dependent on you. When you have big eyes, little eyes, young eyes looking up at you for answers and you don't have them, difficult space to be in. And to save space for myself, I have to give myself grace to be able to misstep, because these are new and uncharted territories. Absolutely. And I also have to understand that, like I said before, I'm mad as hell also. And sometimes that space that I'm saving for myself, it might save you from a good old fashioned cussing out, because you got Scott the righteous counselor, and then you got Scott the ratchet Negro.
Right.
And I haven't gotten my thermostat together, and we have to give ourselves grace to be able to misstep in those ways as well, right? And understand that much like a business has to reconcile the books every night, you have to reconcile the books with yourself and say, okay, tomorrow I can be better, right? I don't necessarily know what better is going to look like, but I know that I can't do this thing that I did today again, and have that kind of grace for yourself.
Right. Good stuff. Very good stuff. Good stuff. Man, these questions are pouring in. Bill Coleman says, Dr. Thomas, maybe I missed this, but how do we erase the stigma of Black men and women approaching treatment and seeking help?
It's going to take some time. I think you're seeing a big push by a lot of celebrities to highlight the benefits of having good mental health. I think it's important for us just to normalize it by just showing that it's not about something being wrong, more so than how can I be at my best potential? How can I get out of my own way? How can I not let different things that happen to me, tell the rest of my story for the rest of my life? So I think that we have to normalize things. It's going to take some time. There's individual effort. I think that it comes from the conversations that we have in our own communities and our own families about mental health, to always make sure that in our individual level that we work towards creating safe spaces for people to talk about their emotions, and to also help people understand that mental health is a resource, and that we should eventually start just comparing it like any other medical specialty. If you broke your arm, you would have no hesitancy whatsoever to go see a doctor. But when you're feeling, having panic attacks or any type of anxiety or depression or any other type of mental health issue, we put so much more weight on it. We feel like a personal failure when ultimately, this is a illness that requires treatment and medical attention.
Yeah.
People who have spent a long amount of time dedicating their life to understanding and treating things. And so I think that we just have to take away that something's wrong with me, I failed, that's why I'm seeing this doctor, and just really take the power out of it and just understand, hey, this is a tool, I'm not feeling well, let me get better like any other thing in my body. But I think it's harder because obviously emotions are more intangible. It's not, you can't point to a part of your body and say, oh, my emotions are here, to any type of bodily issue or damage that's taking place. And so I think it's normalization, not only in public, spaces, but also in our homes, in our family, and our friends. I also feel like that's always the push that I have with the stigma, is just really just normalize it. It's okay, and also showcase that you have to be mentally healthy in order to really push forward in life. Very hard to, whatever you're doing, if you have untreated anxiety and depression, sure enough, not as well as it could be. You're not working at your full potential, your full max. Very uncomfortable way to live. It can cause medical problems later on when it's untreated. And so, I just want it to become more of just part of the conversation, part of, just, hey, I'm seeing my therapist today. I don't feel good. We work through it. It becomes more of a attractive quality. Like this is a plus that you're working on yourself and you understand triggers, and that's more appealing, But you see there's so many reasons why the stigma exists, and it's not always our fault. You see so much representation when it comes to TV shows and movies, and how therapists are represented, how psychiatrists are represented, how medication management is represented. You see the classic psych unit that looks like a dungeon is someone without knowing that many mental health conditions, if they're very severe, they can put you in a catatonic state where you look like that. You look for not because of the medication, is that the untreated mental health disorder that's just become rampant in your life, and so that normalization is going to take some time. I think it's going to be more conversations like this, more people being open and expressing how they got ahead because of focusing on their mental health. We start sharing it as part of the success stories and start to normalize in that way. I feel like it'll help, but it's definitely going to take some time. And I feel like, I've seen the steps taking place, and I've had a number of friends, reach out to me about trying to find a therapist, and, solace in me talking about my experiences of engaging in therapy, things I've had to work on, and how that's helped tremendously. It's I think it just takes some time and a lot of conversations, and, but I think we're heading there. I feel like it's a matter of, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we do. And so I just want to say this because I just really can't stand when people say that there are no African American therapists, psychiatrists, or psychologists, because there are. I have presented 1, 2, 3. But I just want to acknowledge that there are African American clinicians out there. Like, there really are. And I can't debate about whether there are, whether the numbers are equal in terms of our counterparts or what have you, but I'm speaking specifically for people who are looking for an African American clinician. Like, there are people out there. Like, I'm always referring people to people in my network, or we have networks within our network that we can refer to. So I just want to say, like, don't even buy into that belief system that there are no African Americans who are practicing, who have the credentials or the education, because that is totally not true. So, am I telling? Go ahead.
It, um, even to piggyback on what Dr. Owen was saying, like
Mhm,
normally some of those conversations, when you're talking with your friends,
mhm,
when these conversations come up. I remember when the first time I went to go and see a therapist, it was at the recommendation of one of my friends, and we were having a
mhm,
discussion about something I was going through in that moment. And he was like, "Hey, man, are you seeing somebody, to kind of talk these things through?" And I
mhm,
the most difficult thing for me at the time was being a person who knows this information, right? I have
mhm.
the book sense. I made really really good grades. Um, so
Right,
with everything that's in the book, but I don't
right.
have the ability to be impartial with myself, and that
Wow.
one of the key principles in therapy is realizing that you don't have the ability to be impartial in these
Wow.
situations. It's
Yeah.
almost giving yourself permission to recuse yourself from the situation, but also it's normalizing those conversations with your friends and with those people who
Yeah.
are to you when you have those safe spaces to be able. Because I don't let everybody work on my car, right? So
Okay.
if I don't want everybody to work on my car, right, I'm gonna
Right.
go to my friend and I'm gonna say, "Hey, man, who does your work on your car?" Or if I'm in my friend's home, I'm gonna say, "Hey, who painted for y'all?" Right?
Yeah.
It can be as normal as having those types of conversations, right? Who
Wow.
who painted this for you? Who did this thing for you?
Mhm.
What when you were going through that situation?
Yeah.
You got fired. What did you read? Who did you tap into to
Mhm.
get success with that? And those conversations start to try to they flow normally. When I
Mhm.
first moved to Atlanta, one of the first things I did was tap into my network and say, hey, who's your doctor, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Seeing you have a
Mhm.
black doctor that you trust, right? If you have a black
Mhm.
doctor that you trust, then tell me about them because I need somebody that I trust in this new place in this new space. And if you have experience, then share that experience with me. And then it's our duty to share the information with the next
Right.
person and normalize being in those spaces and saying, hey, I have several things going on right now that are bigger than me. And
Yeah.
it's bigger than you because I made better grades than you in school. So so, just normalize having those kind of conversations and
Right.
in a way that's not hurtful
Yeah.
and inviting to say, hey, we can both do this.
Yeah.
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 And I'll add that it probably took me 5 years to see a therapist after realizing I needed to see one. It took like that
Mhm.
long. There was still, some resistance I had, even though I had a psychology degree, and I knew better. but
You should be able to fix yourself, right?
it took us a while for me to take that first step. And
Right.
oftentimes people will get, they will get bogged down by that first step. But I know what helped me was that having friends that normalized it. They just talked
Yeah.
about having a therapist like it was nothing, like it was just like having a regular checkup. And I think that when you're around people who normalize things that you see more of as a hurdle in some sense, it can
Yeah.
the power away from it and just realize like, wait, let me just have someone help me. I have someone helping me if something's wrong with electronics, right? Electrician comes in, why can't I let someone help me that spend time
Yeah.
understand helping people navigating different stress. But
Yeah.
resistance is something that everyone is susceptible to, even people who have science backgrounds or behavioral health backgrounds. It can be hard once again to understand your blind spots and to understand your full needs. And so,
Yeah.
but always putting yourself in position to utilize whatever resources available for you to
Yeah.
use. And I think that was a big part of my therapy journey was that there was no longer an excuse. I'm in the middle of psychiatry training. I know that things are impacting me in a certain way that will impact my ability to do good work. I'm in a very supportive program that has given me the opportunity to explore therapy if I wish to do that. And so
Yeah.
I felt like it was a perfect time and there was just no more excuses for it. But it did take a while for that to take place. And
Yeah.
you have to be gentle with yourself and understand that sometimes resistance can mean different things. Sometimes it's just that, your brain or your body is always trying to find a steady state. And so something new is still viewed as a threat. a threat to normalcy, even if familiar isn't necessarily healthy. And so whenever we're engaging in something unknown, a lot of fear can come from that. But you shouldn't let that anxiety or that worry from unknown, take away from a positive thing. And ultimately, it's all wrong, seeing a therapist. Something's going to be highlighted that you didn't point out, that you weren't necessarily in awareness of before.
Right.
But that resistance has to get addressed, and there's different ways to do that. But once again, conversations, can also allow for accountability. When people know how you're doing, or know that you're okay, they're more likely to ask you questions about how you're doing. And now they're bringing in mental health conversations in the forefront of the convo, which is now in your mind more, which ultimately can lead a door open for opportunities to explore that, to engage in health. And we have to talk about it first in order for that to take place.
Right. Have the conversation.
I think the other thing also for me is like having this framework again, where I don't want my people to be set up for situations where we are only talking about survivorship, right? These are situations that we just want to survive. Like we have the innate ability, and we should all be desiring to thrive, not just survive situations, right? And I think that from a whole health perspective, from eating right, from checking in with my mental health, it's a full system for me. So each part of the system has to be in working order in order for it to be operable. Right.
Come on, social work.
So if something is missing, or something, if I got a flat tire on my bike, then I can't ride it. I got to push it. Right. Yeah, I can survive, pushing my bike up the hill. But if I got that thing and I got it in pristine condition, and I get to feel the wind in my beard hair anyway, because I ain't got no hair up here. But that's thriving, right? Being able to feel wind in your hair and being able to glide for a minute. And that's another thing that kind of resonates in these situations where we look at where we are in America. We're trying to figure out how to survive the things that are going on, and I believe that we're entitled to thrivership. I don't want to live a life anymore of survivorship. Not in this country. Not for these things got going on. I'm not going to do it because my family deserves to thrive. We've been asking for years on years on years. And it because I haven't done my work. Right. So folks were talking to me today about are we going to have these conversations? Are we going to have healthy dialogue? No, we doing internal work right now, Pim. I ain't got time. Internal work about getting us to a point where I'm not talking to you about how to survive right now. I'm talking about thrivership. If we're not talking about that, I don't have any talk for you.
Right.
And Ratchet Scott that came out for a second. I'm back.
You back. That's good though. That's really good. Like, and especially being in like this quarantine or this shutdown mode, it's causing a lot of people to really have to look inward, because everything else that we could be distracted by, we don't have all of those things anymore. Or a lot of people don't feel safe going out so much and engaging and indulging in those things. So we are having to do a lot of internal work, most definitely. Natalie says, this has been absolutely helpful. I know this is geared towards men, but wow, as a woman, this has been very, very helpful. I wasn't expecting this to have such an impact on me. Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
So very cool. I'm trying to get through these. Yes. Listen, wifey is on here. She said, you better preach, sir. She is on here. Listen. Ms. Hayes is representing. Yes to thriving. Amen. Agreed. Therapy saved my life. All good points. So there are two other questions that I have, and I know that I have like hijacked your time tonight because we were supposed to be done at 9 o'clock. So I'm sorry.
Michigan.
Do what?
I knew we weren't finishing at 9. This is just too important a conversation.
I'm so sorry. But this is so good. This is so good. So I actually have, and thank you all for putting your questions in the comments. Premier Art says Scott Hayes normalized the idea of therapy for me. Talking to someone who was one of the best. Talking to someone was one of the best things I've done for my life. So very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So, um, gosh. So I wanted to ask a question very quickly about medication. So, Dr. O, if you can go here for about 2 minutes,
Yeah.
just a general overview of, because of course, there are a lot of questions about medication. There's also a lot of stigma about it. There's a lot of um, apprehension about it. And so, if you can just briefly talk about yeah. So I mean, whatever you feel like are the like most of the questions that you get about medication. So let's go here very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, bread and butter pediatric practice definitely involves medication.
Mhm.
Quite a lot of them, and they're not all the same. They all have different mechanisms of action, works in different parts of the brain. They all have
Mhm.
different benefits and different side effects. And so when you see these ads on commercials on TV,
Mhm.
oftentimes they may describe a medication and this long list of side effects, which are valid, but that may not actually be the level of medication you need to treat your symptoms. And so oftentimes when you go and see a psychiatrist, the goal is designed to determine what medications would be useful for this individual. But what we really want is someone to get all the benefits of the medication without any side effects. We have a number of medications where they're not as heavy compared to medications used to treat schizophrenia or used to treat bipolar disorder. But usually any doctor that's prescribing medication, we know how it works, we know what to look out for. And so we normally start at very low doses because we know that someone's body needs to adjust to this new foreign substance into their system. And we're very much comfortable in navigating that with a person. Oftentimes, people can have side effects, and particularly African Americans, we are more likely to have side effects of medications. And so it's just important to understand that your doctor needs to understand what's going on. We need to know, how you're feeling. We will tell you side effects to look out for. But the goal is not for you to just kind of live with this unpleasant reaction. We want you to have more benefits than any types of downsides to it. In most mental health disorders, when they're promptly treated, we can really start medications that are less likely to cause, weight gain or sexual dysfunction or decreased libido or sex drive. But those can happen with certain medications that we have. I think the overall, message I want to convey is that there's a number of different ones. You have to really work with a doctor to determine what's the best one for you. The more you let your doctor know, the better, the more I can understand and treat things certain ways. But there is a big stigma when it comes to medication. And I think people, once again, that this, the goal to normalize things is very important. Someone could say, oh, I take medication for high cholesterol or blood pressure, but taking a psychiatric medication has so much more weight to it.
Yeah.
That can oftentimes that hurts more people than helps them. And
Yeah.
so, we're very comfortable with understanding some people want to eventually get off medications. They want to know their long-term, goals when it comes to that. But we're very much educated to tell someone what to expect, to look out for. There are a number of different medications used to treat various different types of disorders. And it's important to really just engage in conversations with your doctor about it because the more we know, the more we can treat. And like before, someone can try medication out, have a bad experience, and then they don't go to the doctor's office anymore. They're afraid because they had this unpleasant side effect. When if they would have let me know that 2 days later after I prescribed it, I could have started something else. And so the more I know, the better. We understand that most people do not want to, be on medication the rest of their lives. We can accommodate that as much as we can, but overall, the goal is to be someone halfway. Not every medication is for everyone. And so that's one of the things I like about psychiatry is actually that everyone can have a different treatment plan regardless of having the same diagnosis. But you have to really understand the person that you're working with and how they view their illness, how they view medications. You could work with someone that may, have holistic options, but for serious conditions, you probably need a holistic option and a medication option, both well. But therapy with medication management tends to be you're doing really great if you can get both. Will help most people. Most people benefit from that exercise. Some people would benefit from taking medications. You combine the two, you can really make a lot of good strides, So medications are not the end all be all and wellness and self-care. Is a tool used to help to find a better baseline when there's different neurochemicals that may be releasing in the brain, or certain parts of the brain that are overactive over other parts of the brain due to genetics or lifestyle habits or stressors or number of different things can impact our brain's ability to function in its correct state. And medication can help with that, but it's not the end all be all of treatment, and no doctor ever says that either. So it's just really about being engaged and being open to have that conversation so that you can and utilize the tool that's available.
Right. And I want to partner Scott with this. Scott, talk about adding the therapy piece on top of the medication component.
I think it's important, especially when you talk about usually how we operate as a part of a multidisciplinary team. And what Dr. Oden is giving is that I'm going to be having those conversations with my client at that time about kind of the importance of partnership and treatment with your provider, right? This is your psychiatrist, this is your prescriber. Then you want to come into that conversation when your treatment team is being developed or when your treatment plan is being developed with saying, hey, I'm not really sure if I want to do medications, or my ultimate goal is not to be on medications. So being able to immediately identify what it is that you want to do as a result of the medications. I've been on XYZ in the past. I don't ever want to be on that again. Is there an alternative? We started this medication trial and I had this side effect, and we try something different. And again, like Owen was saying, when people try something and you almost think that conversation with the psychiatrist or whoever is above your head, they may just decide to never come back again. So a portion of my role in the therapy piece of it is take this and apply it to your everyday life. How can you live and have this going on, right? How can you normalize this for you and make sure that it's integrated into what you have going on already, so it's a normal part of your life, so that you know that you get up in the morning, you take your medications, and then you have a 10:30 appointment with to discuss how your girl was tripping last night. That the way that I view my role very simplistically is that I believe that we can have both and, right? You can have to take your medication and be able to do some talk therapy and work through issues as well. But if mine is all over the place, I can't get my mind calmed down enough to even have that portion of the therapeutic conversation, then that's where we all come together and we say, hey, let's try this medication with some talk therapy. Right? Your goal is to get off the medication, then we can do a trial of you being on a lower dose or something like that. And the link between the client and the psychiatrist a lot of times, so that we can make sure that everybody's in communication about what's going on.
Right. And I also like to add that most side effects are reversible. You feel odd, stop the medication, just stop it. Let me know, we can start something else. And so I think people are afraid of having a side effect that can cause some type of permanent damage. And of course, we have medications that need to be used appropriately, used as directed. But oftentimes I just really just take out the fear of it. Like, if you feel odd after 3 days from taking the medication, just stop it. Let me know. We'll just start somewhere else. Problem solved. We're not at a dead end. There's more treatment options here. I'm sorry that happened. I can't always predict, how someone's gonna handle a certain medication. I'll always try to put it at the lowest dose possible to get your body adjusted to it. But ultimately, if you like it, stop it and let me know. Just do the let me know part. That's the part that's often missing. The patient piece. And like Scott says, people will just don't go at all, and they're expecting maybe some type of adversarial conversation between a doctor, or why didn't you like it, or what happened? And it's not like that. We know that different things can happen, and we're both eager to. We want someone to feel better, and we want them to see the benefits of taking the medication. And I had any unpleasantries about it either, because that just makes the job harder when it happens. But the goal is to make things better and not make things worse, and stop the medication and just communicate with your doctor what's going on, so we can figure out another plan.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. So Dr. O, Joey says, Dr. Oden has been a blessing as a therapist, a true friend, and a brother. Oh, without hesitation, I highly recommend seeking out his counsel.
Nice.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. This kind of feedback is so helpful, because sometimes, and I'm sure you guys can attest, sometimes you may question whether or not you're really making a difference. And so getting that type of feedback is just, like, tell your therapist, tell your psychiatrist or whomever that, if they've helped you, that kind of feedback is helpful. So we have some ladies over here who are saying, and some guys who are saying that, listen, they have already signed up for I'm Not Okay Part 2. They like, listen, fam, listen, we have hijacked their time for an hour and a half. But I am tremendously grateful for this conversation. I feel like it could just go like on and on and on, because there's so much that we can share. There's so much that you have to share. And it's just, especially when we talk about mental health, we talk about treatment, we talk about it in terms of men, in terms of African American men, like the conversation, there's just not enough conversation that is happening. So as a quick wrap up, y'all, they're in the comments like, we need a part 2, fam. So we gonna see. We're gonna work some stuff out. I'll say that. So in terms of, and just going back and being sensitive to everything that is going on now, what would you recommend in terms of, and I know that you each have kind of touched on this, but in trying to wrap up here and bring it home, what would you recommend in terms of coping with, like Scott said, the anger or the sadness? I think I posted something, I saw something and I reposted it the other day that was like, how am I feeling? First, I'm terrible. And then I'm laughing, and then I'm okay. And then I don't care. And then I'm falling apart again. And it's like all of these different emotions at one time. Which is what I think is the most overwhelming thing, is feeling multiple emotions at one time and not being able to feel like, well, should I address the anger? Should I address the sadness? Should I address the confusion? Because it's all happening at the same time. And so, Scott, I'm gonna start with you. What would you recommend, or what has been most helpful for you in dealing with just the complexity of what we're in a pandemic? We're in a what feels like a civil war. How are you coping with the complexity of all of this? And then I'm gonna get your thoughts as well, Dr. O.
So there are multiple happening for me right now, and I think the main thing that I'm doing is recognizing my humanity.
Okay.
And being honest with myself about how I feel at any given moment. I think that my reality is that when these things happen and they hit like boom, 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 as a man, my automatic response is to sometimes take away my own humanity by, and I have to put my armor on, or I have to put my cape on in this moment. I give myself permission to go into this mode to where it's just protection, right? Wow. It's just about making it through that day. And the reality is that uh, the things that we see happening, right? They can be dehumanizing. They can
Right.
have walking around terrified, right? And we know a lot of times as men, we can ill afford to walk around being terrified, but we can also ill afford walking around being unprepared, because that's
Yeah.
when you get yourself caught up in some stuff. But it's about recognize what I have going on in that moment. And the part that I'll be honest that I'm still grappling with is and I think I posted this somewhere too. Um, Having some level of expertise in dealing with past trauma and having to be honest with myself that this is active trauma that's happening in
Yes.
real, right?
Real time.
The thing that I can do in these moments is be honest with myself about, whoa, right? I have to unplug from social media for a minute, because I know that my settings may be set to autoplay, and ain't no telling what's gonna pop up on my timeline.
Listen, you better shut that thing off because it's real out here in these streets. No autoplay.
Right. When you know what your internal temperature is, when you check that internal thermostat, you have
Yeah.
to, it's time for you to unplug, be
Yeah.
honest with yourself about how you're feeling in that moment. And if that feeling is being overwhelmed, then you
Yeah.
do some self checks, right? And have some self
Yeah.
talk, knowing
Yeah.
that I can get through this day, but I cannot get through it with checking my social media every 5 minutes and seeing what the next
Yeah.
thing I'm getting ready to be mad about. Because my reality is I gotta go into this other therapy session where I'm trying to help someone else. We
Yeah.
can't be saying you know, and not knowing who the therapist is and crying together, when I'm trying to help this person
Listen.
separate trauma, right? But the
Right.
other thing that I did again today was call my therapist and see if he can bump me up.
Listen, fam. Like, did you have a cancellation? Like,
I'm right here. Shoot me a text. Uh,
right.
I need to holler at you. But and
Right.
that's also the nature of the relationship that I have with my therapist. I hit him on
Yeah.
text, be like, "Hey man, I ain't trying to get no free time from you, but I'm telling you right now, in this moment, I'm struggling. If you have a minute, let me know if I can jump in with you." Um,
Yes.
just being honest with yourself, and so often we're not honest with ourselves, and
Yeah.
in that we end up being dishonest with
Yeah.
the people who can help us the most.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Absolutely. Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Dr. O,
Yeah,
talk to us.
I'll also add that it's, right now we're dealing with something unprecedented. I've never had to sort through so many emotions going on at once before.
Mhm.
I've never really had to navigate so many people around me having emotional distress on top of having my own emotional distress, on top of being in a place of business in which I work, I help people work through their emotional distress. And so that's been pretty impactful. I first started by just really being honest about how I felt. Friends were checking in. How do you feel? Like, I feel numb. I kind of feel a little dead inside. I'm working on it, but it's kind of being about the emotion at the time. There was just I didn't feel like there was any room to pretend how I felt, and it was just easier to actually let this person engage in support. They reached out to me for a reason. Me saying I'm all right, that doesn't really do it justice. It's not taking advantage of that opportunity for me to lean on a friendship, And so
Yeah.
it's important to really acknowledge how you're feeling. It's definitely important to watch how you utilize social media right now. Checking social media is not the same as checking in with your friends. So you may think that you're checking in on people by checking their profiles out, but that's actually not checking in with your friends. That's not in
Right.
those seconds. And so there's a lot that's being filmed and recorded and reviews, and you have to be very careful and understand that social media is a tool, and a lot of tools require proper handling and understanding how you can be impacted by it.
Right.
For example, just with the George Floyd case,
Yeah.
the George Floyd murder. When that occurred, my mom called me. She asked me if I saw the video. I told her I didn't. I was like, I'm working right now. I'm not in the mood to see it. And she told me more things to describe what happened during the video. And then, against a better judgment, I watched it, and I watched it for a bit, and the whole day was, affected from it. And I knew it, from the jump. I was like, I'm in a dark place now. This feels very bad, and really seeing, and once again, talking about how, we're very sensitive people. We're very connected. When we see these murders take place, this person looks like a relative. He looks like a friend. This is someone who I can relate to in a number of different ways. So definitely affected by that, for someone to scream out for their mother who's deceased, knowing that some people, and when they're dying, they start to hallucinate, or they start seeing things. And so, to see this person in that process of dying, and to see how that all took place, and even seeing the negligence on part of the EMS services, not securing a spine, not securing an airway, no CPR measures taking place, that whole time in that video recording. You see this injustice, and so it's hard for it not to affect you. But at least I watched the video on my time. I knew I wasn't ready for it just because it presented itself on my computer screen or my laptop. I'm sorry, my phone. These social media applications are designed for you to look into it, to press play. It's all designed. And so you have to be very cognizant of that, understand your triggers, understand your own past traumas, and being aware of that. You may want to go to the protest, but that may not be the day for it. You might be under a high degree of stress. You may be triggered due to other stressors going on at the time. And so, there's more than one way to be active. There's more than one way to engage in the community. And protest for some people, that's very traumatic. Big crowds, it's not something they can really tolerate. They may have unpleasant experiences. And so be very mindful of how you utilize social media. Actually tell your friends how you're doing when they reach out. Don't wait for opportunity. Don't just say okay. Don't say I'm fine. Say you're mad or whatever. Allow that to come out, because it's already inside of you. It's going to go somewhere. But I feel like, also know that this is a great time to reach out for resources for assistance. There's a number of online, telemedicine platforms for therapists and psychiatrists.
I'm actually gonna get to that part. I was gonna put that, so you're flowing right into where I was going, but go ahead. So yes, what he said, there are a ton. Thank you for sharing the tips on how things that we can do to unplug. Sounds like you guys are flowing in the same vein with just reaching out to your friends, your family, being honest about how you feel, and also unplugging. Just because something shows up on your screen, I mean, you better start. Me and my friends have this joke where we'd be like, girl, I saw that and I scroll real fast. Like I don't even know what happened in the video, because the minute I heard the music, I was like, oh no, we're not doing this today, and just scroll by real fast. So yes, absolutely. Knowing what will be triggering for you. As you said, there are a lot of resources. One of the resources that I often refer to, and both of you guys can chime in, I often refer to Psychology Today. Dr. O, you're on Psychology Today, correct?
Yes.
Scott, are you doing any private practice work?
I am.
You're not. Okay. But if people have recommendations for therapists, either of you guys can recommend, right?
Yeah, definitely. Right. Psychology Today is definitely the gold standard. I feel like most therapists are on there, and usually when I have people posing questions as to how to be a therapist, I don't Psychology Today. It also has a lot of mental health articles written by therapists and psychiatrists on psychology as well. So I feel like a really good resource for mental health topics to be discussed with professionals. And I mean, I also enjoy, someone who has a long history of mental health problems that engages their social media platform and talks about their story. It's very relatable. A lot of people connect with that. But it's also important to know that there are people who have spent, 10 years of their life studying certain things, and also realize and understand the importance of expert advice, and also understand the importance of, someone who's lived through something and has a lot to share as a result. They're both equally important. It's be able to utilize that when you can.
Right. So the either or would be applicable. Okay. So beyond Psychology Today, there is so are there any, because I know that we have the Therapy for Black Girls platform, where for women we go to find an African American therapist. Is there something like that for men that you're aware of? Okay. If there's not, then one of you guys can start that, right? We'll talk offline. We'll get that started. All right. So other than Psychology Today, online resources, are there any other recommendations for people who can, who are interested in seeking help? I feel like Psychology Today is like the biggest one that I refer to.
Definitely
Of course.
National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of good information on medication. So oftentimes I'll instruct the patient to Google the name of the medication and NAMI behind it, and the first link will go to the website. And it's just really written for patients well, because if you Google medications, you might find all types of stuff, and different chat rooms and things can be sometimes sensationalized, or you're not getting the full picture. You know, someone may be describing the worst moment of their life from medication, but they didn't tell you the dose or what other pre-existing conditions that they had that may have worsened that happening. Right. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't say misinformation, but the full depth of the story may not be told when you randomly find stuff online regarding prescription information. So NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, tends to be my go-to resource for information for patients. And they oftentimes you can call them and find different community clinics in your area as well.
Mm-hmm. It's the National Alliance of Mental Illness or on mental illness? Which one is it?
Good question. I thought it was on, but it could
okay.
be.
We'll roll with that. What'd you say, Scott? What'd you say?
I'm rolling with on.
You rolling with on.
I think too, not necessarily a resource, but this idea that, and I don't want this to seem just, well, you are your greatest resource.
Yeah.
You have to trust the way that you're feeling. And the main thing is like to have this unconditional positive regard for yourself, right? No matter what is going on, I'm worthy, I'm worth it, right? And whatever it takes, if I got to do my Googles, if I got to make some phone calls to see who's available, and also with establishing a therapist or seeing a psychiatrist, it's much like the investment that you would make into any other long-term relationship. You know, you might have to date that person for a little bit to see if it's going to work out, right? And I have that level of unconditional positive regard for myself, knowing that this is going to be a long-term relationship, right?
Yeah.
Right.
My barber, right, is going to be my barber, right? My mechanic is going to be my mechanic. I need the same kind of long-term relationship as it relates to my physical health and as it relates to my mental health, right? It's gonna be, so I might have to date around a little bit before I lock one in.
Lock it in.
Because I'm worthy and because I'm worth this investment, everything that I have. So we're starting with this internal work, and the person is going to have to be willing to be an expert on me, right? But expert on me. So if I jump into this session and you're not listening to what I'm talking about, then we getting ready to break up, and I'm gonna move on to the next one. But you are your greatest resource in terms of being in touch with what it is that you need and being able to communicate that information appropriately and having that level of unconditional positive regard to say, I don't accept this, I'm moving on to the next person.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah,
that's
we can talk so long, and I really like that you touched on just having that self-talk, and what you say to yourself when you start your day, and how that's immediate influence that we can have in our lives. And oftentimes when I'm having a rough week, I will, before I get out of bed, I will just talk to myself like, I'm a descendant from a resilient people. I'm a descendant from kings, queens to slaves, from healers to architects. And I come from a family that's been resistant, to different trials and tribulations. We've shown that resiliency. And so whatever tools I have available at this moment, I will utilize them in this day to navigate this to the best of my ability. And I feel like whatever your mantra, your affirmation needs to be to understand the current climate that we're all in and how it's affecting us, it starts with yourself, and it starts with what you say in the mirror to yourself and how you think about yourself. That's really a good cornerstone of how things are going to go in a day based on reviewing yourself first. And so Scott did a really good job in highlighting that and also talking about the power of that, because it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Very good stuff. So, wow. This has been absolutely amazing as always. So we have all these shout outs over here. Guys, please go back and read the comments. Like, you guys are getting shout outs. Dr. O, Scott, like, just agreement and crying out for a part two. Somebody said Scott looking like Morris Chestnut. Somebody is trolling you. Lionel Martin Jr. is trolling you. So, hey, Latoya, thank you for tuning in. So this was so good, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us, giving us just so much wisdom tonight. Like, I feel like, as always, I'm always excited, and then when I get into the conversation, it's always just so much better than even I expected. And so I'll be going back to watch the replay because this was absolutely amazing. So I think that everybody can follow your social media. Give me, well, what social media handles can people follow you on that you feel comfortable with? And then we will actually close out. So yes, thank you all for tuning in. So, Dr. O, where can people follow you?
So I'm psychiatry.com. So you can find me there if you're, trying to find some services. As far as my Instagram handle is Dr. Thomas Oden, and you'll find me there. Those are my main social media outlets at this time, but working on expanding that.
Give me your Instagram again.
It's Dr.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Dr.
Got you.
Yeah.
We put the @ sign for IG. All right. Thank you. Scott, where can people follow you?
Best place to follow me is on IG. It's Scotty_lives_out OWT _loud. Scotty lives out loud.
You gotta have all these underscores.
It's important.
Okay, repeat it one more time. Let me make sure that I got it.
So that's Scotty with a Y _lives _out _loud.
Got it.
Oh, Scott, we have some things in common. I didn't know. Yeah, I gotta reach out. Yeah, we're really big deal fraternity.
Yeah, the audience has been extremely blessed to be in the company of a couple of Omegas who are also clinicians, mental health professionals. We do this.
You do this.
Really? Okay. I'll save my comments for offline.
But really,
thank you.
I want to tell you that we really do appreciate you allowing us to use your platform to have this conversation. It's really important, and we appreciate you. Just can't tell you enough how many people have just said, "Hey, I can't wait to tune into the conversation." People are, wanting to have this information, and even folks who may not be willing to say it, they're tuning in and they're taking the information back to those people that they love in order to create those safe spaces, and for some of us to be able to establish those safe spaces. So your platform is very important, and I appreciate you inviting us on.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you
so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Again sometime.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in and for offering your wisdom, like, not only as clinicians but as men, like, on a very, like, having the clinical expertise, and then also coming to us from a standpoint of just being a human being. Like, you guys did such a good job of balancing that for us. And so I appreciate it so much. I'm sure that everybody in the comment section, look, y'all started all these shout outs in the comment section. Lord have mercy, Jesus. Um, but I'll let you guys go back and read the comments and all of that. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Please share this with your father, your brother, your bae, your quarantine bae, your boo thing, your husband, your nephews, like whatever. Like share this with the men in your life who you know that this would benefit. Also, the replay is going to be on my Facebook page. In about 24 hours, it's going to be posted permanently to my YouTube page. So thank you all for tuning in. We will be in talks about part 3, and so, or part 2 of this, but it'll actually be the 3rd part of this men's mental health series. Thank you guys so much. And you're right. I am blessed to be in your company, but it's because you guys are such awesome guys and just very decent and compassionate human beings. And so absolutely, I was blessed tonight, and I'm sure that everybody else that tuned in was blessed as well. And so we are signing off. Make sure that you catch the replay. If you catch the replay, type hashtag replay in the comments. Thank you. I hope that everyone is well and that you stay as safe as can be. And we are signing off. Good night.
All right, take care.